Ladies, gentlemen, sheep, welcome to the spoiler-filled discussion of Iron Man 3. I am the Mandarin. Nah, I'm just kidding. I'm John Maffio, aka Mothman Jones. Let's get right into this because I really want to talk about spoilers with Iron Man 3. I had a good time discussing it in the regular review because there's just some things that I have to talk about that I couldn't shed light on in the regular review because I was dancing around the subjects and it was hurting my brain, so I gotta get it out of me and put it into video form for all of you. I love the narration that began and concluded with Tony Stark. It was so Shane Black-like and so Kiss Kiss Bang Bang-like. And they start with the song, "Y'all listen up, here's the story about a little guy that lives in a blue world." If you can't tell, I'm a huge fan of that song. It was one of my favorite songs during my childhood, and the integration of the song with the beginning of the movie just got my hype level up the first time I saw it. I've seen the movie twice now. One thing that kind of disappoints me is that nobody died. I felt the struggle and the danger with all the characters, but nobody died. Happy got close to dying. Gwyneth Paltrow Pepper Potts was supposedly dead, but she came back to do an awesome action sequence about 5 minutes later. The only characters who perished were Rebecca Hall's character, who was the sexy scientist, and Guy Pearce. And I did think Rebecca Hall's scientist character for Extremis was underdeveloped, and she wasn't bad, but the character was just very bland. Speaking of Pepper Potts, I thought that she was actually dead. I was actually sold on the fact that she fell into a big ball of fire and disintegrated into nothing. And the look on Tony Stark's face when she fell was heartbreaking. Immediately after that moment, when Tony Stark goes into his armor and he starts fighting Guy Pearce's character, Aldrich Killian, I felt every single time he punched, every time he did something, you felt the grunts, and every time he would do something, I was like, yeah, go, Tony Stark, kick his ass. Now, I never really read the Iron Man comics. I'm more of a Spider-Man type of guy. But I was aware of Extremis and its capabilities. And I thought for the movie, it was executed well. I thought the characters who had the Extremis were creepy looking. I thought the actual design of what they did and what their aesthetics were was Terminator-like. Tell me that shot at the end with Guy Pearce before he gets killed walking out of the fire, if that didn't remind you of Robert Patrick as T-1000 in Terminator 2, well, now it probably will. Before I get to the big twists, the events that took place in the film that just made people want to explode and just rip their hair out of their cranium, I want to say that the actual ending of the movie with Tony Stark getting rid of his arc reactor is interesting. And the end of the movie after the credits says Tony Stark will return, but not Iron Man. What intrigues me about this notion is that if this is the last movie with Robert Downey Jr. and the other cast, then the implications show that Iron Man is done. It shows that Robert Downey Jr. may be hanging up the hat after Avengers 2, because I think they're renegotiating the contract, but I think he's pretty much done. And I don't mind that. I think that the actual conclusion was well thought out and well done. I mean, now he's in a happy relationship, happy, pun intended, Happy Hogan, with Pepper Potts, and everybody's okay. But we know shit's going to go down within the next couple of Phase 2 movies, and he's going to have to come back somehow, some way. But I think this means that he won't be Iron Man in Avengers 2. And this would come in line with the theory of Kevin Feige saying that there was a roster change with Avengers 2, because they're adding new characters, and you can't have all these characters from Avengers 1 added on to the fact with the addition of new Avengers characters. Some people are going to have to be substituted, and unfortunately maybe one will have to be Robert Downey Jr. Tony Stark Iron Man, and people might not like that because he is the Hollywood rock star of the Marvel Universe, but things have to happen, and for story purposes, it would happen. We saw how much money the Avengers made, and even though Robert Downey Jr. contributed to that greatly, we see the power and the potential for these movies now. It's basically, they are a juggernaut in Hollywood. They don't need Iron Man to be in Avengers 2 for it to be a success. But given the terms, I think Extremis will play a big role in future Marvel movies and maybe even Avengers 2. And I think Tony Stark has the capabilities to build a suit that could power up without the arc reactor and he could still be Iron Man. But I personally say no. Whew, okay, here we go, guys. This is the big one. So, the marketing led everybody to believe that this movie was going to be a big revenge flick between Tony Stark and the Mandarin. The Mandarin is Tony Stark's arch nemesis, much like, in comparison, Spider-Man's Green Goblin or Fantastic Four's Doctor Doom. He is the guy. And they set it up like it was going to be this big battle. And looking back on the marketing campaign, you could see why it was marketed the way it was. But Mandarin is not who he said he was. He's actually an imposter. He was actually a British actor named Trevor, who he likes soccer and he says, ole, 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 ole. Within context of the movie, Killian was the Mandarin, but I think that Mandarin could be anybody because he represents evil. And even though Killian is dead, I think the Mandarin could still exist if they were to make another Iron Man. Now, this is the absolute turning point of the film, where audiences either stuck with it and rolled with the premise and the direction of the story, or they said, fuck this movie, I'm done with it, this is a piece of shit, it's the worst Iron Man I've seen, the worst Marvel movie, I quit. And like I said in my spoiler-free review, I understand completely why people would be pissed off. Because if they did do that for Spider-Man 3 with Uncle Ben and Sandman, but speaking of the new Spider-Man movies, if they were to change a certain character arc or something that was really specific to the lore so drastically, it would piss me off too. So I get it. But personally, I thought it was a cool twist. And given the tone of the movie, which had dark moments, but it had a lot of humor, it was a very humorous and hilarious scene. And within context of the movie, it worked. Because this character, they're building him up like he was some really imposing villain. And you could tell, Killian, Guy Pearce, the slick back hair, the suit, he was evil from the get-go. We knew that. But what we didn't know is that he was the mastermind. He was the puppet master behind all this. However, I do agree that a different direction could have been approached and still have been successful. So let's see here. Just say the Mandarin was actually the Mandarin, and Killian was still Killian, but Killian was not the mastermind. He was just working alongside Mandarin. Because the movie's central theme is Tony Stark trying to find himself as a person. He's just trying to find peace intrinsically and externally with Pepper Potts and his armors and just everything that he stands for. And the final climax could have still worked with a Mandarin and Tony Stark battle. Basically, keep everything from the first half of the movie leading up to when Tony Stark is in Tennessee with the kid. Now, let's just say the Mandarin is actually a terrorist, but Killian is actually like a partner of the Mandarin, and he uses the Extremis armor alongside, in conjunction with the Mandarin's ring powers, to fight against Tony Stark and bring him to hell. That most certainly could have worked, but see, I disagree there, because then it would have been safe. And even though it would have stuck and sustained to the guns of the Marvel lore with the comic books, it would have been very safe. I really do appreciate that Marvel went with Shane Black's direction instead of denying him and actually having the balls to go through with something different. Because let's be honest here, aside from the first Iron Man movie, which was a groundbreaking movie for its time, superhero-wise, every other movie is pretty much a safe movie. This is the first movie, aside from the first Iron Man and Avengers, because that was a tough feat, to actually overcome the obstacles of being a safe movie and actually doing something somewhat differentiated from most superhero movies. Pretty sure I'm not pronouncing the first name right, but Aldrich Killian. I'm just going to call him Killian because for the past 10 minutes I've been calling him just Killian, so let's roll with that. He is like the Batman Forever Riddler type of character, and I do think this is going to be very similar to the Electro character in Amazing Spider-Man 2, where he's going to be an outcast, a loner, who becomes a badass. He introduced Tony Stark to the AIM program with Extremis on a rooftop in 1999, but he got abandoned, and that's what caused him to become this really slick, suave, James Bond type villain. And I really dug the character. He was a little cliched villain-wise, but I thought he was the most interesting and most memorable Iron Man villain, aside from Obadiah Stane. And one problem that's very significant in concern to Killian and his Extremis, basically Extremis allows a person to regenerate and harness the power of like molten lava, but it's never truly understood what must be done to get rid of these guys, because what happens is that when they fight, if they get too, caught up in the fight and they get too intense, they explode like a bomb, and that's what kills them. But at certain points in the movie, these characters blow up 2 or 3 times, but they keep coming back. For example, the redhead girl, she gets killed with one blow when Tony Stark puts the badge in the microwave. The other guy, the guy who has the shaved buzz head, he gets blown up multiple times, and he gets killed truly through a hole from the arc reactor into his chest on the plane on Air Force One. And then Killian gets blown up by the Iron Man Mark 42 suit, but he's still alive, hence the Terminator 2 moment. But then he is legitimately killed with confirmation by Pepper Potts. But it's another explosion. How many explosions does it take to kill a person with Extremis? What you don't really see what their true weakness is. And that's all I have to say about Iron Man 3, spoiler-wise, from everything that comes off the top of my head. If I missed anything that reaches concern to you personally, comment down below. We can discuss it down in the info box. If you watched my other review, my spoiler-free review, I'll give a quick consensus. I thought that Iron Man 3 was a really good movie. As a standalone, it was great. As a sequel to the Avengers and Iron Man 2, it was really good. I'm not going to get ants in my pants and get all jittery because Marvel Studios is prospering now, and there's so many characters that they are planning and preparing to place on screen. And as much as I love Robert Downey Jr. and Tony Stark, I don't have a necessity to see him on screen again. I would be okay with this being the last Iron Man movie for a little while. Spoiler alert! Oh wait, the video's almost over. Well, granted, if you stuck around for this video, you have already seen Iron Man 3. If you haven't and you watched this video, shame on you. But let's talk about it down below. Please let me know what you think about the Mandarin twist, or Killian, or anything regarding Iron Man 3 spoiler-wise in the comments down below. I'm John Maffio from Mothman Jones Movie Reviews. This is Mothman Jones, signing out. And I am Iron Man. No, I am the Mandarin. No. I am Aldrich Killian. No, I'm nobody!